Hi everybody, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records, and it's just a quick little video. I thought I'd show a little jazz that I picked up recently and a few other items. Uh, I am not by any means very knowledgeable about jazz. I enjoy it and getting more and more into it. Learned a whole lot here on the VC from a lot of folks like Sherv. Uh, Tales from the Man Cave, Chris, Tales from the Man Cave, Chris got spins, Mazzy, trying to think, I don't want to leave anybody out, Chris, Vinyl Blues guy, touches on jazz sometimes. There's a guy, is it the Vinyl Rundown? I forget his name. Hadn't seen him lately, but he does a lot about jazz too. So there's several I'm looking at, but had the opportunity to go over to a warehouse where a guy I know who's a big record collector or reseller, I guess you'd say, has a warehouse, and he allowed me to go in and pick up some records to. I've got a booth table at a vintage store and a craft store here in Ellington, and of course, people buy the classic rock. We've got a lot of other stuff too, but that's what sells mostly. So went over there to pick up some stuff from him that I could put at my store. Your classic, your Boston, your Cars, Eric Clapton, Elton John, stuff like that people see and they want. So I did that, and then I went over to where he had some jazz and went through that and picked up some jazz stuff. So this is it's kind of call out to all the jazz folks that are really up on their jazz. Kind of look over what I've got and tell me if I've got anything, that that stands out, or anything you think I'll really enjoy. A lot of it is based on artists I hear other people on the VC mention. I just got through watching the Ken Burns Jazz 10-part documentary for the second time. I watched it 20 years ago when it first came out, or at least parts of it, and I just finished watching it, so a lot of the names kick in, but I don't know that much about them. So here's some things. I didn't have to pay a whole lot for these records. Ahmad Jamal, Tranquility. This is from '73, I believe, and it's on Impulse, which is evidently an ABC Records subsidiary. One called Night Train from the Oscar Peterson Trio. Dave Burrell, I remember hearing his name. I don't remember. I think he's a pianist. High 1, High 2. High 1, W-O-N, and then High 2, T-W-O. And, I look over and see Pharaoh Sanders, is that how you say his name, is on the trombone on this one. I don't recognize any of the other artists. This is from '76. When they did, I think Sherv did, and some others did stuff on jazz guitarist, I kept hearing Joe Pass, and this is Virtuoso number 3 from him on Pablo Records. I don't know what year this is. It's in stereo, so probably in the early or late 70s, actually, 78. Barney Kessler, guitarist, and this is Summertime in Monterey. I think he came up in the jazz guitarist as well. Dexter Gordon, he was mentioned fairly prominently in the Ken Burns video. After living 15 years in France, maybe he comes back in the early '70s to the U.S., starts putting out, signs with Columbia, and this is a Columbia album from '77. So not for sale, a DJ copy there. Now I'm familiar with this one. This is my wheelhouse here. This is kind of the merging of acoustic music, bluegrass, and jazz here. David Grisman and Hot Dawg. This features great guitarist Tony Rice on several numbers here. Stefan Graffelli used to play with Django Reinhardt is on here. This is some. I have this CD, but boy, I saw the album and grabbed it. I know Ron Carter was a bassist, and this is one of his albums. I love that picture right there. This is called Peg Leg. Again, I really don't know what I've got now. Wynton Marsalis. I think maybe some people might not be real enthused about Marsalis. Hot House Flowers, and I think this was the big album, one of the big albums he had. He's kind of an expert, and I think maybe some people are a little resentful of him, or maybe he thinks he knows more than he does. I don't know, But I thought I'd pick that up. I keep hearing about Cannonball Adderley. I know he was on the Miles Davis stuff, and so this is at Cannonball Adderley Quintet Country Preacher. I don't know what year this was. Let's see it here. Again, some of the covers are not in the best shape, but most of them are in pretty good shape. From Electra Musician Jazz Masters Edition. This is One Night in Washington, Charlie Parker with the orchestra. And I read a little bit about this. He played a plastic saxophone for these live recordings. And McCoy Tyner, I see people talking about him a lot, hear his name a lot. And this is Tender Moments. This is an audition copy, it says. And that's on it's on Blue Note, the Stereo Blue Note album. And what about this one? This intrigued me. I like the cover. Wings and Things, from Johnny Hodges and Wild Bill Davis. I think one of them is Hodges is alto sax and Wild Bill Davis is on the organ. Grant Green plays guitar on this. I know everybody raves about Grant Green. In fact, I picked up an album by Grant Green, new album, new pressing by him. Now on the Ken Burns special or documentary, they were talking about an appearance at the Newport Jazz Festival by Duke Ellington. It was a great story where he wasn't really going over that good, and they started playing a song to close out the evening. People were beginning to leave, getting up and leaving, before set was over, and it was a real swinging song. The sax man came out front and was playing, and it got to swinging so well. This very attractive young lady just couldn't resist anymore and got up in front of the stage and just started dancing, and everybody, Ellington was into it, and he kept telling the sax man to keep on going. Don't stop, just keep going. And they played and played it, and before long people had started coming back in, sitting back down, or actually coming back in, standing back up and getting up on standing up and just really getting going. And I'm not sure if that was this 1958 concert or not, but it features Jerry Mulligan on baritone sax. And Count Basie was covered a lot, of course, with Ken Burns, and I remember Count Basie from when I was a child. I remember those jazz greats from a kid growing up, I guess TV programs at the time. Count Basie, Louis Armstrong, Bessie Smith, folks like this. This is Basie at Birdland, recorded live at the Jazz Corner of the World, and it's on Roulette, the Mob-owned record label that Tommy James and Shondells were on, I believe. So I got those, and what have I got, folks? Is this something? This is good. I didn't pay a whole lot for them, and I'm looking forward to cleaning them up and listening to them. I picked up a few other things more in my wheelhouse. I'm not a completist, but sometimes I get on a kick and I feel like I really want to have everything an artist does. And probably the hardest effort I've made to uh, have the complete works of would be Delbert McClinton. And I didn't realize this Alligator Records album existed. I only thought he had one Alligator Records uh, release, and that would have been the Live at Austin City Limits. But I found this the other day at another place. Delbert McClinton, Honky Tonk, and I Done Me Some. Classic recordings from 74 to 76. And then here's Country Cooking with the Fiction Brothers. This is kind of a bluegrass album. The reason I bought this one up, Peter Wernick, who I believe was in Hot Tuna, he writes banjo songbooks, or did write banjo songbooks, things like this. But this is an album, a one-off, it really seems like, with the Fiction Brothers, who were from San Francisco, and they were in New York New York State, maybe around Woodstock or somewhere when they did that. And Country Gazette's a really good bluegrass band from the West Coast, I believe, and Byron Berline, some of those guys in there. Yeah, Byron Berline and Roger Bush and Alan Mundell on banjo. Herb Peterson guests on this, and this is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a New Riders of the Purple Sage album, like Panama Red album or something. It's got a comic strip in it and like an ad on the back of a comic book. Thought that was kind of interesting. I'd never seen this particular Country Gazette album before. Country Gazette was a really good band, or was a really good band. And Pistol Packin' Mama from the Good Old Boys. Here's your Grateful Dead connection. Jerry Garcia produced this. David Nelson, which if I'm not mistaken, key figure in New Riders of the Purple Sage, and Frank Wakefield, plus old first generation bluegrass musicians. Chubby Wise and Don Reno are on this album as well. So it's kind of the old and the new, the California and the southern guys work together. And finally, the album that I think several people have shown so far that I'm looking forward. I just got it in the mail. Evidently, they sold a whole lot more records than they expected to sell, because I ordered this about 3 weeks ago, and whenever it first came out, the first day or two it came out, and it just got here today. Drive-By Truckers, The Unraveling, and this is, not that it really matters to me, but this is a colored vinyl, Marble Sky, it says, colored vinyl. On Steve Hoffman's site, some people were saying that some of these colored vinyls were out off-center and things like that, so I have to be on the lookout and make sure that's all right. But it could just been the autofile and them talking, you know. Sometimes the autofiles get a little carried away about some of that stuff. Okay, well, that's just some recent acquisitions I thought I'd share. I wanted to hopefully get some feedback from some of our jazz folks. Let me know if, you know, what I've got here. And a few other things, some bluegrass type stuff, and a R&B blues album from Delbert McClinton, and a new release from the Drive-By Truckers. One other thing before I go, remember it is it's election season, Super Tuesdays coming up this next week, and South Carolina's tomorrow, so election is in the air. We've got TV ads everywhere. I just wanted to, you know, point out something that you may not realize. That did you realize that Mike Bloomfield, yeah, Mike, the guitarist Mike Bloomfield from Chicago, I thought he had passed away. He's running for president. Did anybody else see that? Yeah, I don't know where he got all his money. I didn't think he sold that many records in his time. I really thought he had passed away, but no. Evidently, he's been the mayor in some town in New York State somewhere for 2 or 3 terms there, and he's decided to run for president. Now I'm not advocating for you to vote for Mike Bloomfield or not vote for him. I don't know. You need to weigh the issues. But one thing I do want to point out, I'm upset when people bring up personal things about someone and not deal with the issues and the positions and the track record in government of the people that run for office. And this is just really getting my goat, especially being a 61-year-old man, is they're getting all over Mike Bloomfield because of his stop and piss. Have you heard this? Stop and piss. I mean, like, that's just some big thing. What has the government got to do with stop and piss to begin with? I mean, look, a lot of people don't understand this, younger people, but let me explain. Men and women, as they get older, their prostates press on their bladder, and they end up feeling full, like they've got to use the bathroom a lot more often than you do when you're 20 or 18 or 16 or 25 years old. And I mean, really, the prostate's tough on folks. You ask any woman that's had a couple of babies about that. And so they're making this big deal. Look, it's not the government's business. If I'm driving down the road, a rule of thumb is, I got to think about, okay, where am I going to stop and piss? It's important. And, I might not drive 20, 30 minutes before I need to find the sheets or something where I can stop and piss. So, fault the man for his policies if you want to, but don't attack him on a personal basis just because of having to stop and piss so much. Okay? All right, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. But how about that? A guitarist. Who would have thought back in the day that Mike Bloomfield would be running for president and be as wealthy as he is too? Gosh, it's something. So remember, if your state is voting this Tuesday, or if you have early voting tomorrow, go ahead and get out there and vote. I did because I'm such an informed citizen. You can tell by my knowledge of of current events and candidates that I'm very qualified. But if you get there and you get a long list of names and you're not sure, one good thing to do is the eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But make sure when you eeny, meeny, miny, mo down the list and come back up, you go down and then back up like that and do the "my mother told me to pick you." If you leave that out, it doesn't count. Okay, that's one way. Another way to consider when you're thinking about who to vote for, to get a good non-biased view of the candidates. If you find an article about a candidate or about an issue in a online newspaper or TV station's news site, don't read the article, just go to the comments section at the bottom and start reading those comments, and you'll get a good idea. Another thing is, another way to make good decisions is listen to talk radio. Talk radio works great. Always objective and not unbiased. And, it's always strange to me, but do you realize that that Canadian band Rush has had a talk radio show for decades now? And all of a sudden, Rush this, Rush that. Well, I knew they put out some pretty good records in their time, but I did not know they had a AM talk radio show. But there's the Rush show. You go to your get off that AM and go to your get off the FM and go to your AM and move that dial, and you'll find Rush on there. And so you'll get some good non-biased views. Is that way. And one last thing, and I'll close out. Another thing you can do to decide who to vote for that's a really good way to do it is count their signs on the road. The more signs they got, they must be the best candidate. Count their signs. Now, we've got one guy here in North Carolina, and he's kind of got an unfair advantage because his name is Forrest. And instead of putting one sign up, he puts 4 signs in a row up. And one sign says run. You can go a few feet, and the next sign says Forrest. You go a few more feet, and the next sign says run. And then his regular political sign. So 4 signs. So I don't know whether you should count all 4 or just count those 4 as one when determining who to vote for. But it's It's a play on that Tom Hanks movie. Was it Behind the Green Mile? Is that what it was? The Tom Hanks movie, where it's got the Forrest character that runs the marathons, and it stars, and, you know, the Nazi tries to kill him, and he's running the marathons. Marilyn Chambers is in it, and Dustin Hoffman's in it. He plays the guy that's running all the time. And then it's got that Nazi chasing him, pulling his teeth out and everything. And then they're on death row for a while, you know. And Tom Hanks is the guard on death row. That's where it comes from, the Forrest. Run, Forrest, run. That's the way it went. So, you know, I know current events, folks. I know trivia. I know all this stuff. So, you know, I'm probably considered one of those influencers I keep reading about, you know, on the YouTube. Elliot Cruz, influencer. Okay, remember to vote if you get a chance. Try to be an informed voter, though. Get your information before you go to the polls. All righty. Remember, be kind to everybody, folks, because we're all your neighbors, okay? Take care.